who was known for her powerful singing voice, was shot and killed early Saturday morning. Police say her son pulled the trigger. Northern Virginia Bureau reporter Drew Wilder has more on the murder of Latoya Acree.
She was a rising soul singer, Latoya Acree, a 41-year-old single mother of 4, her voice lighting stages across the D.C. area. A devoted advocate, she was preparing a concert to raise awareness about domestic violence, just days away. But in the early hours of one September morning, tragedy struck at her home on Pondoli Drive. Deputies found Latoya collapsed, shot in the upper body, bleeding in her own driveway. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Her killer wasn't a stranger in the shadows. It was Elijah D. Smith, her 21-year-old son, her own flesh and blood, the young man she'd raised. What led a mother and son to that moment? What argument, what secret, unfolded moments before that single gunshot ended everything? In the quiet suburbs of Spotsylvania County, Virginia, a young girl named Latoya Clara Acree first discovered the power of her own voice. Born and raised just south of the Rappahannock River, she grew up caring for her younger siblings, watching her single mother work long hours as a cosmetologist. It was in that humble household that Latoya found her first stage, a bathroom mirror she used as a microphone. As a young adult, Latoya followed her passion into cosmetology school, earning her professional license and launching a small business in her hometown. But it was music that truly fueled her soul. She sang at church, local talent shows, and family gatherings, each note filled with raw emotion, and each performance hinting at something larger. At 36, her life took an unexpected turn. In 2019, she auditioned for True Soul, a DC area soul band making waves in the metro scene. Their marketing director, Pam Gallahan, later recalled, "She befriended everyone she met, she was just a very genuine and good-hearted person." Her lead singer bandmate, Caesar Roy, said she brought something special to the stage despite never having sung in a band before. Within months, Latoya was more than just a band member, she was a rising star. Her vocals resonated with warmth and hope. At the same time, she managed a household of 4 children, balancing rehearsal schedules with parenting duties. Through it all, she spoke openly about her faith, about protecting the vulnerable, and about using her music to bring attention to domestic violence. She had never imagined that her biggest performance would come off stage, and that the night before it, the woman who gave her everything would become the focus of a tragedy no one could have predicted. Elijah D. Smith was 21 at the time she was killed. The promising singer's oldest son, a quiet young man with dark eyes that rarely met yours. But behind that stillness, something had changed. Just days before the shooting, Elijah was released on bond for an assault and battery charge, unrelated to his mother. He was back out in the world, under pressure, and at home, tensions were rising. Neighbors later told investigators that Elijah had grown distant, skipping school, skipping work. He'd been seen arguing with his mother in the driveway, voices raised in the hour before the shooting. "Mom says I bring trouble home. She said not to bring that woman here, she doesn't like her friends." Latoya loved her son, but something had changed in him. Their relationship grew strained in private, away from rehearsals and church. A family friend later told reporters Latoya was worried about Elijah's temper, worried about his influences. He'd recently been in trouble, an assault and battery arrest that landed him in custody. Days later, he walked free. But he didn't walk home. By midnight on September 17, something inside Elijah snapped. The quiet kid, the man who refused to show his feelings, became the shooter. In the weeks leading up to her death, Latoya Acree focused all her energy on something close to her heart, a concert dedicated to raising awareness about domestic violence. The show, scheduled just days ahead, was to be a beacon of hope, a way to use her stage to speak for those too afraid to speak for themselves. Her bandmates described her as really, really happy, that things were finally aligning, between her music, her mission, and her family life. But behind closed doors, the energy shifted. Rumors flickered that Elijah was behaving differently, isolating himself, pulling away from the family. Locals later reported heated voices echoing through the house, a mother trying to reach her son as he pushed back more sharply each time. Notably, LaToya had discovered Elijah was involved in a relationship she did not approve of. Sources say she confronted him, stern but loving, telling him that bringing certain people into their home wasn't what she had raised him to do. Neighbors would later recall the night before the shooting, raised voices, a single door slammed hard, silence that followed, and later, Elijah retreating into himself, growing more distant than ever. But on September 16, the silence at her home would be broken by a single gunshot. It was just after midnight on September 18, 2021, when the peaceful streets of Oak Grove were shattered by a single gunshot. Deputies arrived at the home in the 6100 block of Pondoli Drive to find LaToya Clara Acree, 41, lying in the driveway with a gunshot wound to her upper body. Despite the desperate efforts of paramedics, LaToya was pronounced dead at the scene. Emergency operator, 911, what's your emergency? Caller, I heard a loud pop. I think someone's been shot at 6100, Pondoli Drive. Please, hurry. Operator, police and medics are on the way. Can you tell me who's hurt? Caller. The lady outside, she's bleeding badly. I don't know, someone called someone. Within minutes, investigators pieced together what had happened. It wasn't a burglary. The shooter was already gone, but he was familiar. LaToya's son, Elijah D. Smith, 21, had fled. But not far. The next hours turned into a manhunt. Investigators moved with urgency. Elijah had been spotted checking into a nearby hotel in 4 Mile Fork. Moments later, deputies arrested him without incident. No shots fired. No struggle. Elijah was charged with second-degree murder and use of a firearm during the felony, held without bond. What had begun as a family argument ended in one of the most troubling tragedies the community had ever known. But investigators still needed to know, what sparked that argument so violently? What happened between mother and son, in those final hours, that ended with a gun in Elijah's hand? By the time deputies arrived at the Pondoli Drive home, everything had stopped. LaToya was lifeless, lying in the driveway, her vibrant spirit extinguished. There were no signs of forced entry, no shattered windows, no broken locks. It wasn't a burglary. It was something closer, something personal. Days later, detectives confirmed what neighbors already feared: her son, Elijah D. Smith, was the last person seen arguing with her. He was gone from the house, and vanished into the night. Investigators quickly shifted their focus inward. Elijah became the prime suspect, flagged in reports as the only person unaccounted for. Detectives secured warrants, swept surveillance video, and raced to find him. Within hours, law enforcement tracked him to a hotel in nearby 4 Mile Fork. He was found alone, calm, sitting on the edge of the bed. No resistance, no struggle. He was taken into custody and charged with second-degree murder, and using a firearm in the commission of a felony. Held without bond at Rappahannock Regional Jail, he was positioned not as a suspect, but as the accused. But where had Elijah gone? And what drove him, just days before his mom's biggest night, to cross that line? Soon after deputies left the Pondoli Drive scene, the search had just begun, for 21-year-old Elijah D. Smith. Investigators traced Elijah to a local hotel in 4 Mile Fork. Inside, he sat alone in the room, quiet, unmoved, as deputies gently placed him in handcuffs. He was taken into custody without a struggle, and transported to the Rappahannock Regional Jail. There, he was formally charged with second-degree murder and the use of a firearm during the commission of a felony. He is held without bond, the same man who once sat cross-legged on stage beside his mother, now accused of ending her life. But with the arrest made, the questions multiply. What did investigators find that linked Elijah to the shooting? And what drove him to act, just days before the concert his mother had poured her soul into? After Elijah's arrest, investigators began assembling every piece of the puzzle, starting with motive. Why would a son kill his mother, just days before the concert she hoped would shine a light on domestic violence? Police found no signs of forced entry. LaToya hadn't been expecting visitors. This was an intimate confrontation, one that started inside the home before spilling into that driveway. Rumors began cropping up, that LaToya had discovered something troubling, something linked to Elijah's personal life, or perhaps a change in his mental state. Speculation swirled about a relationship she believed was harmful. One witness would later say the argument that night began over something exactly like that. She said she didn't recognize him anymore. She was worried he was slipping away from her. Bandmates and close friends had noticed a shift in LaToya's demeanor. A tension in her voice not directed at the stage lights or the audience, but at home, at her son. She was spiritual, church-going, and outspoken about values, and those values clashed with what she believed Elijah was choosing. What kind of relationship was LaToya disapproving of? What did she see in his behavior that alarmed her so much? She had spoken out against domestic violence, but at home, she feared a different type of violence was growing. As police sifted through evidence, one question loomed larger than any other: did LaToya discover something that triggered a reaction from Elijah, or had she seen a warning no one else saw? The answer lay buried in those final hours. When news of LaToya Acree's death spread, the entire community was stunned. Bandmates, church members, and friends struggled to accept that a mother was killed by her own son. Her band, True Soul, released a statement: "We were all devastated," recalled marketing director Pam Gallahan. She befriended everyone she met, she was just a very genuine and good-hearted person, Gallahan said, while lead singer Caesar Roy lamented, "She was just starting to take off, that's what's so devastating." On social media, tributes poured in. The concert she planned to raise awareness of domestic violence became a celebration of her life instead. Fans and friends posted photos of LaToya singing, hugging her kids, lighting up stages, even calling for her music to continue beyond her death. At church services and community gatherings, congregants spoke of the unthinkable, grief compounded by betrayal. Some shared that Elijah had been distant in recent months, others remembered LaToya's excited voice about her upcoming performance. Obviously God had a better plan, for her to sing in, Roy said tearfully, referencing her murder and the life she never got to live. Her 4 children now faced a future without their mother and with their brother behind bars. A community mourned not just a local artist, but a woman whose life was grounded in advocacy, family, and faith. After his arrest at a local hotel, 21-year-old Elijah D. Smith was taken to Rappahannock Regional Jail, where he was held without bond. Authorities deemed him a danger to the community and a flight risk. A grand jury was soon convened. Within days, they indicted him on charges of second-degree murder and the use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, formalizing what prosecutors called a domestic argument gone wrong. At a pre-trial hearing, defense attorneys hinted at Elijah's mental state, suggesting he had been struggling emotionally, perhaps unable to fully understand the consequences of his actions. They argued his behavior wasn't planned, but the result of an unstable mind. But prosecutors presented a different narrative. They said that the timing, just days before a concert LaToya had organized to address domestic violence, signaled intent. They maintained it wasn't an impulsive act, but a choice made in anger. Do you think this was a moment of rage, or something more planned? Let us know in the comments. Should Elijah have been released on bond after that earlier assault charge? As the legal battle loomed, between mental health claims and prosecutor arguments, LaToya's legacy continued to shape how the community remembered her, and how they sought justice. Just weeks before LaToya's death, 21-year-old Elijah D. Smith was released on bond after an unrelated assault and battery charge. The release raised eyebrows. How could someone facing charges for violence be free in a manner that ultimately ended in another violent act? Community members asked, were there warning signs? Some recalled Elijah growing distant, agitated, his relationship with his mother strained. Then there were mental health concerns. Defense attorneys would later argue that Elijah struggled emotionally, suggesting his actions were the result of untreated instability. The question hung heavy: had anyone tried to offer help? LaToya herself was known for speaking up, preparing a concert to raise awareness about domestic abuse. But could she have seen her son as one of those affected? The irony stood out: working to stop violence in the world, yet unable to protect her own home. How many red flags does it take before tragedy strikes? As the days passed, the legal system prepared to deliver judgment. But the public was left asking, could more have been done, by the courts, by the counselors, by those who knew Elijah and LaToya, to stop this from happening? LaToya Clara Acree's voice wasn't just powerful, it was a light in her community. She rose from a small-town upbringing in Spotsylvania County to become the lead vocalist of True Soul, a DC area soul band she joined in 2019. Her bandmates remember her as really, really happy and a very genuine and good-hearted person, whose presence lifted everyone around her. She was preparing to headline a concert intended to raise awareness about domestic violence. Her passion for advocacy was not just professional, but deeply personal. After her passing, True Soul honored her memory by transforming the concert into a tribute show. They dedicated their performance to her, ensuring her voice would continue, in song and on purpose. LaToya's impact extended well beyond music. She was a trained cosmetologist, a student of criminal justice, and a budding social work student, an entrepreneur driven by both creativity and compassion. Her mission to uplift others never stopped. Even in her final days, she was leveraging her platform to fight domestic violence. Though her life was cut short, her message lives on through the voices she lifted and the causes she championed. In the end, LaToya didn't just leave behind a daughter, a band, a community, she left behind a legacy of hope. Her life reminds us that one voice can spark change, even when that voice is silenced too soon. LaToya Acree was a mother who gave everything to her children. Her voice, her love, her faith. She has used her music to heal others, to stand up against domestic violence, and to show that no one has to face pain alone. Yet in her final days, that same mother who raised Elijah D. Smith was locked in conflict with him. She tried to guide him, trying to save him, even as she fought for awareness in the world around her. In her own words, she believed, "Love your children through everything, even when it hurts." Those weren't just words, they were a promise, a creed she followed even when it caused her deepest pain. Her death forces us to reckon with a heartbreaking truth, that sometimes, the greatest battles are in the places we least expect. A mother's love can be powerful, but so can the secrets hidden behind closed doors. We may never know exactly what happened in those final moments. But LaToya's memory lives on, in her songs, in her children, and in the awareness she fought so hard to raise. Thank you for watching. If LaToya's story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. What do you believe caused this tragedy? And how can communities better support families in crisis? If you were struck by this story, stay tuned. Our next episode explores another chilling case that asks, what does justice truly look like when family ties are broken? In the end, the person who stole LaToya's life wasn't a stranger cloaked in darkness. It was the very child she had nurtured, Elijah D. Smith, who burst from the chaos of family tension into something final and irreversible. No intruders broke in. There was no robbery. The fatal encounter happened at their doorstep, during a conflict she sparked, not a random tragedy, but a deeply personal collision of love, fear, and perhaps desperate intervention. And now, the most haunting question remains: what had she discovered about her son, his life, his heart, that pushed her to confront him days before the concert that was meant to give hope to victims of domestic violence? Thank you for watching. This wasn't just a story about a tragic loss, but about the silent battles some families fight behind closed doors. About a mother who gave her life trying to steer her son back from something he wasn't ready to confront. If this story moved you, if it left you with more questions than answers, consider subscribing. We bring you true crime stories that go deeper than the headlines, stories that don't just ask what happened, but but why it happened, and what it left behind. And if you thought this story was haunting, wait until you hear what happened in a small Texas town, when a pastor's wife vanished into thin air, and what they found inside the church walls months later.